You know, I used to believe that love should be spontaneous, that the other person should just love you because you love them. Simple as that. That if anything had to be worked on or be planned or scheduled, it was just doomed to fail because it wasn't pure love. And let me tell you, that was one of the dumbest ideas I have ever had. Because it was dumb. I was naive and stupid. Love and relationships are way more complex and different than I had anticipated when I was in my 20s. So let's talk about this, because I've recently had quite a lot of time to think about it, which is why I missed the last video last week. So let's talk about love, relationships, and marriage, and why they often fail or even end in divorce. Why so many marriages end in divorce. So many people quickly realize that their significant other or themselves have very little in common. They don't like the same movies, they don't like the same food and music, they have different political ideas. They have none of the shared interests, or very little. They're completely incompatible in so many different aspects, and compatibility is often portrayed as the thing that is necessary for love. And that's super hard. To stay connected to somebody who doesn't like anything that you like is very hard. This incompatibility is often one of the contributing factors to why many young marriages actually fail. Obviously, this can also occur with more mature people, but it's slightly different. In young marriages, when you get set up with somebody when you're 18 or 19 years old, there are certain expectations and drivers, such as your physical attraction, the initial excitement, sex is amazing. Everything seems so exciting and unexpected. There is no routine, so even your time goes differently and your memories are imprinted a lot deeper than if you're just going through some monotonous notions and motions with somebody every day. But then you change, and by the time you're 30, everything is completely different. You're a different person. So if you don't grow together through these shared experiences of life together, moving in the same direction, how do you stay connected? When you love someone, you will always try to organize your life to make that person a priority. And yes, in a way, this is a fleeting state. We've all heard of the honeymoon period, and we all know that it doesn't last, and the same goes for any relationship, not just marriage. So love obviously makes someone a priority when it's there. But once you're married and you remain in a longer relationship, you kind of get used to the other person just being there. You get used to the fact that the person is there, and slowly everything else becomes more important in your life, and they slide. They are no longer the priority. More often than not, they actually sink to the bottom of all priorities, overtaken by simple things like your job, career, money, your own time management, the kids, household duties. And your significant other is just there, remaining at the bottom, but always there until one day they realize that the feelings of love got overtaken by the lack of intimacy and attention, not being heard or understood. They become dissatisfied and start looking for excitement and adventure elsewhere. Who can blame them? This is why you can't do that. This is why you have to prioritize the relationship. Spend time together talking, hearing each other, understanding each other, and seeing that you grow and progress in the same direction. Rekindle and maintain that intimacy no matter what. You don't do that, and they will look for it elsewhere. I wouldn't blame them. I wouldn't blame if that happened to you. People... This is the funny thing, because people often think that those who live together before marriage, the people who stay as a couple for so long that other people question them why they haven't got married yet. Why are they still together and not tied a knot? They're so great together. Well, people like that are far more likely to get actually divorced once married than people who marry quickly. And look, this may sound counterintuitive, but just think about it. What exactly is the conversation that you are subconsciously having with your partner, that you live with each other when you remain unmarried? Probably something like, well, for now you're the best that I can get, but I'd like to reserve the right to trade you in when I get bored or I'm unwilling to deal with our problems, or simply when I find somebody better, when somebody better comes in. And obviously this is something all of those people subconsciously know, and all of them feel insulted by, which is why sometimes you see people eventually realizing it and breaking things up or giving ultimatums, or even women proposing to men. And the only reason they often play along with the silly game is the fact that they are doing and thinking exactly the same way. They think, okay, I know you don't really value me. I don't want to commit. You don't want to commit. You need this back door to escape, this back door hatch, open for as long as possible. And I'm doing the same thing. Look, I know that some people will think, how stupid is it to shackle yourself to somebody? And over here in Spain, esposa, esposo, to be married actually means quite literally shackling yourself. And sure, it may be stupid, but compared to alternatives, it's pretty damn good proposition, because without tying yourself to somebody, without those shackles, there are things that you will never learn. You simply avoid them. Just leave. I mean, you don't have to. Why would you deal with shit like that, right? And with that option, why would you ever tell each other the truth? Why would you even try your best to be the best that the other person wants you to be? I mean, there's no need. You have the back door open. And no matter how much you keep telling yourself that you're different, that the fact that you are unwilling to commit, to make it binding, the message is pretty clear. No matter what you say, you want that escape hatch open more than you want to trust and love. Now, when you commit to somebody, there is the inevitable pain, any future catastrophe, something, when the shit hits the fan, it's going to need to be worked out in a difficult way between you and the person that you're committed to, as opposed to, just being able to say, oh, well, I can just reach out to the other person I find attractive or who might be interested in me, and that's it. I'm gonna give them my time and attention. This is why marriage, for instance, actually offers you an opportunity to go, well, there is this pressure building up in our relationship and there is no simple escape. So you're locked in combat and there is no simple escape other than through it. And this is where you could think, well, I could still just escape. I mean, people get divorced all the time. But where do you escape? Are you gonna remain single for the rest of your life, or are you gonna start a different relationship? And if you are, what makes you think that you're not gonna do that same thing in the next one? It's like when people say, I've had many bad relationships, I've never found anybody that I can trust. But what's the common denominator? What makes you think that the next one is gonna be so special that if you were unable to pull through problems with the previous one, how can you do it in the next one? It's not gonna happen. There's no consistent evidence of that, of any of these kind of expectations, and any exceptions to this rule simply affirm this. But then when people hit difficult times in marriage, why do they often stay in those unhappy marriages? This is the next question we have to ask ourselves. Why do they remain for decades despite the red flags that they're often seeing? Well, it's simply because they don't expect much from their marriage. They often think it's normal to have lost the spark over time, to be somewhat unhappy, dissatisfied, or even sexless, and without intimacy, no being hurt. They think that this is just the nature of marriage. And this may also be why we're seeing so many older couples splitting up, because the exit from marriage has become so easy these days. Years of disconnect combined with dissatisfaction makes you feel more selfish, giving people a chance to go, I should be happy, rather than we should be happy. There should be a spark rather than what happened to our spark? And people simply start looking elsewhere. There's no longer a reason for them to look at the situation from a point of view of them as a team, rather than a selfish one. In a relationship, you want somebody that you can spar with and fight in a way, despite how counterintuitive this may sound. This is partly because there's going to be problems in your relationship and problems that you have to deal with together, not alone. And if you're with somebody who isn't willing to put forward their opinion, that there's only half the cognitive power that is available to you then. Obviously, everything has to be balanced. You want somebody who's interestingly different from you, but not to the degree that you can't even communicate. You have to be careful about what you say or do around them. That's not the relationship you want. Somebody who is different but has the ability and the will to express their opinion. People often think, well, I just want to get along with my partner perfectly. But the reality is that the other person who does not challenge you will eventually bore you, and that will make its way to other parts of your relationship. So what you really want is a little bit of trouble in your relationship, a little bit of mystery and a bit of combativeness and the ability to exchange opinions openly and trust each other. To have that ability to say the truth from starting from the smallest things to something more significant. I mean, what do you want from your partner? Probably somebody you find attractive and they find you attractive. Without that, starting a relationship and sustaining it is very difficult. You also want somebody that you can trust. You want someone that you can build a view of future with, and you want somebody that you can negotiate with. And all of that is super hard. People are generally crap at negotiating anything because they have to tell you what they think. They have to know what they want and figure it out. They have to tell you what they want, what will satisfy them, and have to actually be satisfied when they get it. This is very difficult because a lot of people don't actually know themselves sufficiently well to know any of these things. And on top of that, you need to manage and continually update it because your life moves forward through different stages. You're never stagnant. Relationship and you grow, your partner will. And this is probably why so many people fail. Why I used to think the same thing when I was in my 20s, that most people think this, that all romantic interactions should be spontaneous. I was wrong. I can tell you that if you share the opinion, you can just give up on love and any lasting relationships. Never get married. Don't even think about it. The only reason you can think that is because you don't have enough responsibility. Well, once you do, making romantic entanglements would be virtually impossible for you. I mean, look at what marriage looks like. We've already talked about priorities and duties that come with life. And when we have little kids in the mix combined with jobs, household duties, you're never going to find time for spontaneous mutual interactions. I mean, that probably is going to decrease to zero, even if you have babysitters or a family to rely on, because by then your partner is no longer the number one priority, and you will seek other things like having a rest, taking a break, doing your own things and hobbies and interests that may be different from your partner's, as we have already established in the beginning. So if that's what you're hoping for, then you're never going to have it. The only way to have it is to plan, to actually make time for each other, to put in the effort. I mean, just look at how you behave when you date, all the effort that goes into the preparations and scheduling. When you are establishing a relationship, you put some effort into it. Otherwise, it will never get to the next date or the next one, etc. You present yourself, make sure that the impression of you is great and that the person wants to be with you, that they're attracted to you. You do your best to present yourself to each other in some mutually acceptable manner, and you hope that there's going to be a positive consequence of all of that. Maybe sex, maybe a relationship. You're going to find each other attractive, but then people somehow think that once they get married, the same amount of effort is no longer necessary. This is obviously wrong. I would even say that even more effort is necessary on the same front, and you have to think it through. And this time together has to be negotiated. If you don't negotiate it, if you don't make it a priority, then it won't happen. And in all likelihood, well, you're not gonna get it. And once you let that go, part of you dies, and with that, part of your relationship dies. Combine that with the possibility of becoming attracted to an alternative entanglement, which you would do if you were unhappy or dissatisfied in a relationship. And look, I know that many of you would say you should not, because, what option do you even have? Are you just going to give up? If you have any spirit left and you're not getting something in a relationship, like sex and intimacy, you're not being heard at home, what are you even supposed to do? Well, you could work on that. Yes, that is the answer, because it's your marriage. But if you're free to leave, you're not married, you won't be willing to let that erotic element of your life die and accept everything that goes along with that, because you're not willing to, because what's a bit of trouble, right? Just to ensure that that element of your life is maintained. This obviously is partly due to the fact that we're not very good at thinking things through consciously. As I said, people are terrible at negotiating, period. They're particularly bad at negotiating things that are deeply private. I mean, how much do you want your partner to know about you, to know you, who you are, what your thoughts are? It takes a lot of trust to have a real conversation about what you need and what you want. Not many people are willing to or able to do that. Not many people are willing to share their dissatisfaction, and overcome the resentment by speaking and having conversation with their partners. And if they're not married, sure, there's an option to leave. No matter how long you've been together, no matter how much you keep telling yourself that you've been together with your partner for 5-10 years and you're not married, you can always say, fuck that, I'm out. If you're married, then at least you have the utility of, there's some obstacle, so you have to deal with it, and you should. But where do you stand? What about you?